Welcome to the Happy, Healthy Life Podcast with your hosts, Rob and Randy, who reveal the truth, the lies, and confusion about health so that you are no longer the victim to mainstream medical dogma and you are the hero to your own happy, healthy story.
Hello and welcome back to the Happy Healthy Life Podcast with your host, Rob and
Randy.
And we are
the Happy Healthy Guys.
Today's episode is the truth about GLP-1s. We're continuing that conversation. It is everywhere in the news, all over the place. We're going to be talking about your body's hunger switch, your hormones, and the real weight loss story. So last week, we met the cast of characters that play the roles in your hormone cascade. They secretly control weight loss. And today we're putting the spotlight on GLP-1, your brain's hunger thermostat, and even some natural plant compounds that can help you keep your appetite in balance.
Yeah, we'll put all this together for you. So listen, all the dots, they can't actually be connected because it's never just one thing. So you're going to see the bigger picture, how these hormones, these neurons, this entire metabolic environment, how it works together as a team, either for you or against you. And it's not as hard as you think.
Yeah, and check this out. You are going to be, you may or may not be shocked about this. I know we were not, but when you start looking at what is happening in the news with things like the Ozempics, the Wegovys, any of these semaglutides that you hear about, what's going on with them, anytime you try to synthetically trick the body into doing something, it never works out right, because what you're doing is you're messing with how it is that God created your body to work. And so I was doing some Googling about what's happening right now in the news with Ozempic. And what we're seeing right now is that Ozempic, the makers, are being sued for right now about in excess. There's about 1,800 lawsuits that have been filed against Ozempic specifically, to the tune of $2 billion.
With a B?
Yeah, with a B. And here's what it says right here. Ozempic faces $2 billion lawsuits as patients report stomach paralysis and vision loss. Last week, we talked about the stomach paralysis and why that happens when you're taking these drugs. So it's real. And Dr. Randy, before we got on, we were talking about, that $2 billion really just being a drop in the bucket. Why is that?
Yeah, it's a slap on the wrist. This is so predictable, guys. Every single drug that's ever released, at some point, there will be lawsuits filed for damage and death. This is how it's worked for over 100 years. In fact, we talked about in the last episode the pharmaceutical formula for releasing any drug, and part of that formula that they calculate is the amount of damage and death they're assuming will occur and how much money they're going to be fined because of the collateral damage and the risk that they're willing to take because they know people will be harmed. And of course, any doctor, you take the Hippocratic Oath, which says, first, do no harm. And right out of the gate, every time you stick a pill or a shot in your body, you are making yourself sick. So this is very, very predictable. The $2 billion, that's such a large amount of money when you think about it. However, they're projected to make $100 billion over the next 5 to 7 years on these type GLP-1 type drugs. So if you think about it, a 2% fine on $100 billion really is a slap on the wrist. And part of that also, remember that formula that they use when they launch any drug is not just the people that will be killed. They also factor in the marketing costs, because the reason this drug is going as big as it is because it has been funded and endorsed by legacy media, by the medical community, by all the governing bodies that regulate and control any and all pharmaceutical delivery vehicles. So part of that really is the marketing component. So they say that repetition makes it familiar. You can't even turn on your TV right now without being ambushed and having your brain and your neurology hijacked from all these drug commercials. Repetition makes it familiar. Authority makes it credible. because your doctor, they always say in the drug commercial, ask your doctor. Apparently, they're the gatekeeper to all things health, yet they're the number one cause of death. Go look it up. Death by Medicine, Journal of the American Medical Association. But fear is what makes it critical. Repetition makes it familiar, authority makes it credible, but fear makes it critical. And they're now calling obesity a genetic condition, and there's nothing you can do. You are a victim, and you have to take these drugs or you're doomed. That is the message they're telling us. So the 2 billion really is a drop in the hat. But my God, what is really going to happen over the next several years if people don't wake up and get off these drugs?
Well, here's really the message to you. Right now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about taking an Ozempic or Wegovy, just understand you can never, ever drug yourself out of something that you lifestyled yourself into. Okay. Say that again. You cannot drug yourself out of something that you lifestyled yourself into. So we're going to talk about creating a lifestyle and environment where better things are a lot more likely to happen, because you could be, these are real people in real cases. This right here was in the New York Post. It's talking about, here's the title of the article that was in there. It says, Ozempic, Wegovy took my vision. It says, grandma of 11 and New Jersey man, as more users report these devastating side effects of the drug. And what they're showing now is with the vision loss is happening because of something called non-arteritic anterior ischemic optic neuropathy that's happening. And apart from these, you also have people reporting pancreatitis as well as kidney damage. So these are all things that are happening to people right now. And this right now, really, these things are only maybe 0.5% of what we even know that
we have no idea
these drugs are causing right now. So we've got to talk about some real solutions, because the reality is this: is GLP-1 is a real thing that your body makes. And that's what we talked about last week. And just as a quick review, we talked about how insulin works in this, and how insulin's job is like the store manager who's putting the boxes in the store. So your insulin is the person who's opening the door, allowing glucose to be able to get into the cells. And when there's too much of it, then your body has to store it somewhere, and your body starts storing it as body fat. And then we talked about things like cortisol, which goes up when your body is in stress. It's like the fire alarm being sounded. The problem is people are living under this chronic stress, again, causing their body to now start storing body fat for fuel. And we talked about glucagon and its role. And if you have questions specific to the science of how these hormones work, definitely go back and listen to the last episode, because we went through all of that. We broke all those things down. We talked about leptin, and then we talked about GLP-1. And I think we need to talk a little bit more about the GLP-1 and its role inside the body and what it's supposed to be doing, because this right now is the talk of the town, so to speak, and what everybody's looking at, what everybody's wanting.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's really the problem with the way the medical industry operates, Dr. Rob, is they really silo everything off into individual parts and pieces. The body's looked at as mechanistic and broken. And so you just can't do that and ever create any level of health. Really, everything does work together. GLP-1 is just one hormonal cascade,
just one,
as a part of a whole smorgasbord, for lack of a better description, of different pieces that work synergistically together. And what's interesting is, we always talk about how you just can't science the human body. I think I even got that from Daniel Reuters, who I love his work, that the body's too complex. And what we really know about the body, it's embarrassing if we're all honest. The smartest people in the world, in fact, what do they say? Like, the dumbest kidney is smarter than the most brilliant nephrologist. The body is so complex. We really don't know a lot about it. And what we do know, we don't even know for sure if that's true. So for anybody to think they fully understand the body and they can just break it down, isolate it, and silo it off into different pieces, and then treat and manage those pieces with drugs and surgery is flawed right out of the gate, especially when we're not broken, that health is the normal. GLP-1 is a natural hormone, and it is secreted from the small intestine. And we talked about last week why eating real foods and single ingredient food items are so vital to the body's natural release of this hormone because it does create satiety. You know, it kind of goes back to that study where out of the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, where they took the two groups, fed one group real food, one group processed food, and the processed food didn't get the satiety as the real food group. And so the processed food group is going to overeat. And I think about going back when we were in Sardinia just not too long ago, and we looked at people there, they weren't overeating food because they really were eating real food. And so they were there, and they're not thinking, how do I stimulate my GLP-1 hormone response? They're just like, well, this is what my father did. And this is what my mother did, and their grandparents and their parents. You really just were replicating what's observational, which is eating real food, reconnecting with nature, and not poisoning your body with chemicals, toxins, and processed food. GLP-1 will create a satiety response in your body, but it's not the only hormone that's involved. There is a whole cascade.
There is a whole cascade. So the way I look at it, because I love sports, we both love sports.
We do.
Let's not talk about the Cowboys right now, though.
Too painful.
Yeah, it is super painful. But if you did have a great football team, for example.
We used to.
Yeah, true story. And so if God is the head coach, and GLP-1 would be like one of the assistant coaches. And there's a lot of assistant coaches on the team.
There are.
And then you have other people who are helping the coaches to be able to make sure that the players are best equipped to be able to win. It's kind of how I look at this whole thing. And so let's start talking about more of the cast of characters in here and who's involved with this on this team to be able to help your body to win or to have a great functioning metabolism, let's say. But, one of the things that we alluded to last week, and I was talking a little bit about, because we're nerds when it does come to the neurology of how the body works, being chiropractors who are working with the body's nervous system, at least retired chiropractors anyway. We love the fact that the brain does control everything inside the body. And so when GLP-1 is being activated like it's supposed to, and it's working properly, when your metabolism is working properly, for example, you have these neurons in the brain that are there in order to be able to also play a role in this. So just like Dr. Randy just said, it's not one thing. The body is so smart. There's all these other things going on, and there's probably a million other things that we don't even know about.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we do know is you've got these AgRP neurons, which is like the hunger switch in your body. This is what is activated when your body needs food. So what it does is it drives you to then go and find food. Okay. So to your point, like in Sardinia, for example, somebody's at home and this is the thing that says, hey, you know what? You need to go forage your food, or you need to go hunt, or you need to go tend to the sheep. You need to
go get some fresh spring water out of the natural local spring that the village goes to.
Exactly. And so this is what I thought was so cool about these neurons is these neurons begin to shut off. In other words, telling your body, it signals another neuron that we'll talk about right now, telling that your body that you're already full before you even start swallowing. Before you even put the food in your mouth, just you going to then hunt and gather, go get your food. This right here is also a predictor of how much you're going to eat, and it's based on sight and smell. That's one of the things too, is like if you've got a processed food, for example, in a package, and you can't even pronounce any of the things on that package, you can't smell it. That's why it's also so important to cook your own food, right?
Yes.
Because as you're cooking the food, you can smell it.
It's already starting. Like I can think about a nice steak sizzling in SCT oil, and my mouth will start to salivate, and I will start to get a hunger signal, right? Because it's already stimulating. You're starting that process in your mind with the neurology. So not to interrupt, keep going, but it's so true, right? If you're cooking your food, it's a different game than driving through and picking it up.
You 100% smell that. I was just thinking about even just the other day, Isabella had come over, my daughter, and as soon as the door opened, she goes, Dad, were you cooking steak? She knows it's that
Yeah.
smell. So it's already starting to shut those neurons down versus bypassing it. And then you have these other neurons called POMC neurons. This is the fullness switch. This is what tells your brain that you're satisfied, and it tells your brain to stop eating. So your brain is like this smart thermostat, right? Everybody's got the thermostat inside your house. It helps to be able to regulate everything. And so if the AgRP turns the heat on, the POMC turns the AC on, which signals that your body is full. And then you have GLP-1 that helps to be able to make sure that that thermostat stays balanced and it doesn't actually ever move when things are functioning normally.
Yeah, and I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of this, that that neurological cascade, a lot of this is found in our hypothalamus,
Yeah.
which is one of the pieces to the endocrine puzzle that does regulate hunger, which is why GLP-1 actually has an axis to the brain and the hypothalamus. And it goes along with other different hormonal, enzymatic, basically energy homeostasis pathways in the body. So when you have the GLP-1, but you also have other components, there's another one that we briefly talked about last week, but there's a compound or a hormone called cholecystokinin or CCK. If you've never heard of this, this is another hormone that is released from the small intestine, specifically the jejunum, which is a part of the small intestine. And this is called the meal termination hormone because it activates and triggers the hypothalamus to tell you that, hey, you're done, okay? You are done eating. So when you eat real foods, single ingredient food items, foods that do have a smell that's not chemically induced, that do have nutrients, that have things that we need that create the satiety, you will activate that axis because really every single hormone and organ system has an axis. Everybody talks about the gut-brain axis, but there's a a brain axis to everything. Another hormone that actually is stimulated in the pancreas is called PPK, or pancreatic polypeptide. This is the hormone that actually activates the vagus nerve, which, as we know, is stimulated in the gut to the brain, to the hypothalamus, which regulates meal and hunger and satiety, going back to that hormone cascade and that neurological cascade that you talked about. So you focused on the GLP-1, you're making drugs to inject it into everybody at hyper doses. Yet when you eat real food and you know how to nourish your body, you're talking about now CCK being involved. You're talking about PPK being involved. We're also talking about another pathway called AMPK or autophagy. These are pathways in your body that regulate cell metabolism. And then the hottest thing right now, and I've got to believe they're going to be making another drug. Like, they're going to make another drug on this. It's the hormone FGF21.
Hey, before we talk about that, I want to say something.
Yeah,
Not to interrupt you. However, what I want to say is, as we're talking just even about the neurology, about how all this works, is you got to make sure that you've got a clear pathway from the brain down to the rest of the body. Because I was thinking about even a patient that I had that was in my office when I was practicing chiropractic, who had gastroparesis, where her vagus nerve was completely shut down. This was a girl that had to eat through a feeding tube. When she started getting chiropractic adjustments and making sure that the brain was communicating with the rest of the body, I witnessed her be able to eat food through her mouth for the first time in 13 years. Because it woke up those vagal nerve pathways that had been dormant for such a long time. This is a girl that they were wanting to.
They were going to cut the nerve, right?
Yeah, they were going to cut the nerve, but what they were going to do is they were going to give her put a monkey stomach in her body. So
you can't make this stuff up.
The only reason I say this is because that's how important even chiropractic is, and we probably don't talk about it enough, and that's why we always make referrals over to chiropractors, because that right there is how we actually started.
Yeah.
and why we do what it is that we do. So I couldn't sit here and just not say something about that for people who are wondering, hey, what is something that I can be able to do? That's something that you can be able to do, which is why we believe and we tell everybody you should have a family chiropractor that you're seeing on a regular
Amen to that.
basis.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to the Happy Healthy Life podcast. And if you're wondering about our Happy Healthy Metabolism products, go to thehappyhealthylife.com and at checkout, use promo code podcast to save 10% off any of our products.
Thank you so much for listening to the Happy Healthy Life podcast. And as always, if you don't know what's going on with your metabolism and you want to find out, go to metabolismscore.com.
Yeah, no, you're right. And we could go through tons of cases where the only thing that was even changed was removing interference to the nervous system. And that vagal nerve, really, that's called the wandering nerve. And it connects the brain stem and the brain to every single organ system in your body. And when your neurology is off, everything is off. So yeah, every time we say anything, we're under the assumption everybody's under regular chiropractic care. As a blanket statement, let me just go ahead and
we take it for granted.
We do, but because we are, right? And we by profession, and we love the profession, and that's what really got us into where we are today, was falling in love with how amazing our body is and the science behind the nervous system and that innate ability for the body to heal. So yeah, I mean, we could even detour now down that road, but we'll bring it back to this hormone cascade and working with the neurology. But yeah, if you're not under chiropractic care, I think you're missing a key longevity piece.
Yeah, DM us if you're looking for somebody. DM us on Instagram, and we'll find somebody in your area for you.
Yeah. So, but again, and that's why chiropractic is so beautiful. It's not designed to treat anything. You're just removing interference. We always talk about that. The body does not need help healing. It needs no interference, and nothing works in isolation. Everything's working together, where the medical community is siloing everything off in isolation. It's mechanistic versus vitalistic. When we're talking about these hormones, you're seeing here, there's a whole cascade of hormones involved in the metabolic energetic homeostasis process. And I was just saying earlier when you jumped in about, and thank you for doing that on the chiropractic side, and that story of that life that was completely altered, is FGF21. I honestly believe this is going to be the next drug that they're going to now push on society, because the power of what FGF21 does in our body from an energetic talking point is unbelievable. But it also is playing a role in this whole process. And one of the cool things about FGF21, and not a lot of people know this, is that it actually impacts and affects our fat cells, okay? And a lot of times fat cells aren't fully understood. That's why you don't want to get rid of fat. You want, like any cell in the body, you want it to be healthy fat. Yeah. And you've got two main fats that, metabolically speaking, you've got white adipose tissue and you've got brown adipose tissue. Well, these GLP-1 stimulant or these hormones, the FGF21s, the CCKs, the PPKs, the AMPKs, all of these enzyme pathways, they actually help brown fat burn more calories. Brown fat, for just about 2 ounces of brown fat in your body, burns about 300 calories a day. So FGF21, as a part of that hormone cascade, it actually creates an uncoupling effect on this fat. And it also causes the brown fat or the white fat to start to become brown, because white fat, unlike brown fat, doesn't have that thermogenic ability to burn heat and calories like brown fat. It really is more for storing it, right? So if you pinch around your body, you see the subcutaneous fat. It is supposed to protect organs, but it also stores energy. And a lot of the unsightly fat is that white fat. But these type hormones will actually brown that and actually create a hormonal response where you're burning fat and energy, and you're not using it necessarily to burn for energy. You're just using heat to burn up more calories, just sitting there doing nothing. It just blows my mind how amazing our body is when the right environment is created and you're not looking at the body in isolation. So very, very powerful when all those are working together when you're living that happy, healthy life.
So let me get this right. So you're not saying that like I would have more brown fat because I'm more brown than you. So brown fat, white
We're
fat.
not talking about melanin. We're talking about the fat on the inside.
Yes.
But isn't that crazy? Like, you
yeah,
think
this
about
is-
the GLP-1, the FGF21, all these different, these are basically energy homeostasis, like pathways in the body that activate all these key responses that do create satiety, that help your body burn fat, that give your body everything that it needs. You don't have to inject any of this crap into your body. It's just not necessary, and it's not innocuous. As we just, articulated earlier, there are real complications for drugging your body with toxic shots, medications, and pharmaceuticals.
That's why we have to get out of the thinking that, what this is, when these things aren't working or anything's not working inside your body, it is not a genetic issue.
Yeah.
That drives us freaking crazy, right? This is an environmental, this is an environment issue. And what I mean by that is the environment inside your body, okay? So what you got to do is you got to create an environment in the body where good things are more likely to happen through all of the different pathways that we're talking about. So we're going to give you some real solutions on how to rehab your body's pathways to make sure that your body is producing this GLP-1. We're going to talk about some different plant medicine that can be used as exactly that medicine. We talked about that last week and how that's actually used, and we also talked about that if you go back and listen to the episodes where we're talking about the blue zones and the way they use plants as medicine there as well. So we're going to talk about how to create that environment where good things are more likely to happen versus it being a genetic thing. Because what the heck can you do about your genetics?
Well, you can't do anything about it, which is pretty convenient if you think about it, because the medical community needs victims in order to thrive. They need people thinking there's nothing that they can do, that it's permanent, and now you just have to take these drugs. You're not picking different parents. And just thinking about genetics. And listen, I don't know, Watson and Crick, they got this Nobel Prize. They just somehow discovered the double helix, and it's the backbone for how we express life and express, and how we recreate proteins and all. I don't know. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not true. I don't know. But here's what I do know. Whatever you believe is that there's no such thing as a genetic epidemic. So genes couldn't mutate the way the medical community would act like they do. If you just go back 20, 50, 80, 100 years ago, almost none of this chronic disease and obesity epidemic was even around. Yet here we are, 50, 80, 100 years later, and everybody basically is metabolically sick. Obesity is at an all-time epidemic level. It is an epidemic right now. Heck, I mean, you just go outside, walk around and look around, and people are hurting and sick. And it's not because they've got some faulty genetic code or just got some garbage poker hand. You're not a victim to your genetics. And if you've been told that by your doctor or you've believed that yourself, you really have believed a lie. And if you believe things that aren't true and you make decisions based off that, it's very dangerous.
It is dangerous. I mean, just go back. My mom had given me, the last time I was at our house, she was getting rid of stuff, and she gave me these photos. And you got the photo of, one of them was my first grade class, right? And you got the photo of all the kids in the first grade class.
Yeah.
And there wasn't one person in that photo that was overweight. You look at those photos now of first grade class, and you're going to see a lot of people who are already overweight at 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
And being raised in the 70s, yes, I'm dating myself. I've got a birthday coming up next week. But being raised in the 70s, it wasn't a thing back then. The only thing that's changed from back then to now, it's not our genetics. It's cheap calories, processed foods, the seed oils.
Yes.
All of these things that we've been
All the
talking about.
chemicals that actually screw your hormones up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All those are things that have been changed. So we have to go back to creating this environment inside your body where good things are a lot more likely to happen. So
you can't even drink water now. I mean, how crazy is that, Dr. Rob, that you can't even just go to your faucet,
Or
turn
drink
on
out of
the
a water
water.
hose, speaking of the 70s.
Yeah, well, at least we had well water.
Just
Thank God
recently.
back in the day there
Yeah.
wasn't any fluoride in there. But, I've got like a 3-part series I take all my water through just to be able to pour a glass of water so I don't poison myself. We are bombarded with chemicals, the air we breathe, the food we eat, the water we drink. This really is the problem. It's not a genetic problem, because if it is a genetic problem, then there really is nothing you can do. But what if that wasn't true? We're here to say there is something you can do. You play way more of a role in your health than you've been led to believe.
Yeah, so here's, we talked about this a little bit last week. So one of the, a hack for you to be able to create more satiety or feel more full without having to do the GLP-1 stuff is just eating the same things over and over. And so what you're doing is your brain is going, okay, I'm satisfied with what it is that you're putting into the body versus overwhelming or blowing out the system. The example that we gave last week was, you'll literally shut down, for example, my computer. I had to restart my computer before we even came on because so many tabs were opened up. It was overwhelming the system. So I had to push the reset. So if you want to reset, just go through like 3 or 4 days where you're eating some of the same foods over and over and over, and a lot of variety can help you to be able to create more satiety and reboot the system. And let's talk about some other solutions where we call the happy, healthy GLP-1 rehab solution. And we've been working on this for a long time.
About 18 months.
Let's talk about that, Dr. Randy. So what are some things that people can do, and what is it that we created to be able to help people with this rehab solution?
Well, I think we touched on it in the last episode where, we've been looking at for over 18 months, different plant compounds that do play a role in supporting the body's metabolic regulation of energy. And I think, we're big, as you know, we're an animal-based company. We believe in real food nutrition, but plants really are medicine, and they do have certain compounds and polyphenols and different types of things that really, some of it we know about, a lot that we don't know about, but that can have incredible impact synergistically on the body. Now, we would never say to take any type of product and bypass getting your metabolism corrected and supporting your body with real food nutrition. However, there are certain compounds known as bitters that play a huge role with this GLP-1 FGF21 cascade. So bitters, really, that's a plant compound, or even maybe it's kind of a defense chemical, because remember, all plants have defense chemicals, and some plants, not some plants, and some of the compounds are even anti-nutrient type compounds. But one of those compounds that can be used hormetically is called saponins. And saponins are bitter compounds found in certain plants that have phenomenal impact on satiety hormones. All right, so one of those compounds, and I'm sure a lot of you've probably heard of this, is a compound or a plant found in South America called yerba mate. Dr. Rob, you ever drank any yerba mate tea?
Have not drank any yerba mate tea.
I know. And I actually, it's kind of funny how things come full circle. I used to drink yerba mate tea back, 20, 25 years ago. But one of the reasons is, and I like certain bitters, you can get bitters from certain foods, like little bits of like arugula are a bitter, and they can stimulate bile and digestion and support the liver. So plants really in small doses contain certain bitters. But yerba mate is a plant from South America, and these saponins play a huge role with helping the body to secrete GLP-1. They could be even called like a secretogouge, where when they go into the body will now, it'll help secrete that hormone. And I love that, because when you start secreting GLP-1, this works in conjunction with, now the body's going to tap into the small intestine to secrete the CCK, the cholecystokinin, which, remember, tells your body that you're full, so you stop eating. It's also going to hit the pancreas to actually activate the PPK. So now, once again, you're activating your vagus nerve, your hypothalamus. So once again, you're full, you're not overeating. You're now also stimulating the FGF21, which is all working together with these other hormones to make sure now that your body can use fat for energy, that it can also use glucose for energy. So we've been able to source a very clean saponin compound from yerba mate that we've made available now in a new product that we are releasing called Crave Control. And Crave Control is made up of 18 different plant compounds that have been sourced from all over, not only South America and the Amazon, but in different parts of Italy. And usually they're found in mountainous regions all over the world. And these are the medicines, so to say, that these blue zones or these ancestral small villages that live 80, 90, 100 years old with no disease, these are the things that they use naturally. They don't go to a doctor. They don't run to a pharmacy and take a pill. They really nourish their body. They move their body. They're out in nature, and they use plant compounds to support their body. So this is a really powerful compound that we've now pieced together with 17 other pieces to really create an incredible natural GLP-1 response, especially when you know how to fuel your body correctly with the right protein, fat, and carbohydrates. So what's cool about this product that we've been developing is we put together a 10-day protocol that's going to help you dial that in. Now, there's some work that's been done. In fact, I know you know this study. It was from Dr. Kempner. I think it was like back in the 1930s, where it was called the rice diet. And now it's kind of been repurposed as the sugar or the honey diet, where basically you were using very low protein with very high carbohydrate to stimulate these satiety hormones and FGF21. Clearly, that's not a good longevity strategy long term, and you can create really deficiencies in key proteins. But we've put together a protocol with food and exercise along with this crave control to help optimize this hormone cascade, which I absolutely love. Another compound, you got anything to say there, Dr. Rob, on that specifically? Because once again, we're not saying that you can take things to replace anything, but they can support the right metabolic foundation and can actually, when you support it with natural things, you're not going to isolate or hyperactivate one thing. You're going to get your body to go to work for you, hyperacting or not hyperactivating, but actually activating all of the enzyme pathways.
Yeah, what I do have to say about that, because I know you're going to have questions about that, and it's a good place to even just pause real quick to let people know where they can be able to get these products that we're talking about right now. So it's going to be in the show notes. So when you go to the show notes, just click the link that's going to be in there so that you can be able to get that. We also do have discounted pricing for the early adopters to these products right here. So go there. And if you're listening right now, if you go to thehappyhealthylife.com, you can be able to find them on there as well. So that's what I had to say.
Yeah, perfect. No, it's we want to help support you guys. And remember, we don't make or launch anything that we don't really want for our own personal lives. This product is going to be powerful, especially too, if you are listening and you've actually been on these medications or been on GLP-1 drugs, or you've done this crazy fad dieting and you've wrecked your metabolism, we can really help. We can do a rehab for you. This is really metabolic rehab and can actually be now included into our metabolism program. So if you've ever done our metabolism program before and you've gotten the incredible results, this new product, Crave Control, this new tincture, there's nothing like it on the market. Nothing. We've been in the lab for 18 months to put this together. Can actually help support your program. And for those of you who maybe just need a quick win and really need to learn how to believe in yourself again, we've got the 10-day protocol that goes with it, and anybody and everybody can benefit from that. We've also another compound that we've paired that falls into that bitter category that contain those compounds that actually stimulate certain metabolic processes is a compound called bitter melon. And so you don't just have bitter receptors on your tongue, and when you eat something bitter. I actually like the taste of bitter.
I do not.
You do not. A lot of you may not, but I like bitter compounds. Even raw cacao has a bitterness to it, and I really like it. Coffees are bitters. I like coffee. Dandelion root, it's a bitter, but I like certain bitters, but it's not just on your tongue. You've got bitter receptors in your small intestine, which is why you get the release of the GLP-1 and the CCK. You've also got bitter receptors in your pancreas, which is why you'll secrete that pancreatic polypeptide, but you've also got bitters in your fat cells. And this is the bitter melon. What this does, this creates sensitivity, not only for glucose utilization or for using carbs for energy, but it also has a sensitizing effect for GLP-1 and FGF21. So it's creating a sensitive environment where now everything is more efficient in energy metabolism, not forcing anything, creating an environment, like you said earlier, where great things are more likely to happen. And remember, we talked about how fat actually has a huge role in burning calories in your body. In fact, brown fat, bat cells, the brown adipose tissue, are loaded with mitochondria. Bitter melon helps stimulate this thermogenic metabolic heat production in those cells. So you'll actually burn more calories, not necessarily for more energy, but it's almost like if you had this rocket fuel or this rocket gas in your car and you put it in park and you just started revving up your car, you're not going anywhere, but you're burning fuel. And that's exactly what this does. And specifically, you start melting and burning down body fat. And it is remarkable the results you get when you can pair and create 1 + 1 = 3 outcomes called compound interest, or what I like to say, Jesus math, where the math doesn't make sense. So a yerba mate with the proper bitter melon can stimulate and support and create an incredible metabolic environment.
Yeah, so Margie, who's listening right now live, just asked this question. So for a lot of people who have been through our metabolism program, for example, and they've been through not just one round, but even several rounds of our program, depending on where their metabolism is at, how much weight that they want to lose. She asked, hey, is this somebody, can we benefit from these products? And the answer is yes, because of what Dr. Randy just got through talking about. That right there was your answer, Margie, because it's creating more efficiency inside your body. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah, there's no question. And there's so much to what we put together with this new product that I'm so excited about. Can't wait to fully get our hands on it, not just in samples, but get this product out to you guys. But those two compounds we just highlighted are so powerful. And there's a third piece too. We're not going to spend a lot of time as we're wrapping up, but there's a third piece that was hand selected that we actually sourced and we found from Italy, specifically in Sardinia, called barberry. And barberry is rich in a compound called berberine. We also have another compound called golden seal that's a natural plant that will also help provide very, very therapeutic, but also bioavailable dosing of barberry, not barberry, but berberine. And berberine's been around. I remember us having conversations about this when we had developed our first product line at Thorne Research back in 2012. We were actually in Sandpoint, Idaho, and there was research coming out on berberine. The problem is you don't want to isolate berberine out of its normal environment. And so using real plant-based medicinals are really what you're looking for. But berberine actually has a stimulatory secretagogue effect on GLP-1 and FGF21. Remember, this is going to control your energy metabolism, satiety, thermogenesis, creating heat, and also upregulating that uncoupling effect in the brown adipose tissue, along with activating all cellular metabolism through AMPK and autophagy. These are all big fancy words just to say your metabolic energy stores and how you uptake fuel and how you use it and what you use it for is help supported through this. And that's why I love bitter melon in addition to this compound in berberine and with the yerba mate and these saponins is the bitter melon sensitizes all of this. So it makes it uptake easier and it makes everything more efficient. The 1 + 1 is really equaling 10 when you can combine the right compounds in a natural way to get your body using these, along with the right foods, the right sequencing that we put together in our 10-day protocol. Once you start combining all of this, you can really start to see incredible results very quickly because we know the human body is incredible, Dr. Rob. And you create a healthy metabolic environment, it's insane how quickly the body can turn around versus the old way of thinking of long-term dieting and addiction to exercise and quick fixes and tons of pills and medications and really looking outside versus looking within. Your body has the greatest doctor in the world, and all we want to do is help support that doctor by creating the most ideal environment. And that's really your longevity play. And that's how you really get real results without all the dangerous side effects that you get. Once again, not even just side effects, all the dangerous effects that you get when you put these damaging, toxic drugs in your body, namely what we've been talking about today, these synthetic GLP-1 drugs and shots. They're not your friend. They're never going to give you the solution, and they're going to create more problems. And the lawsuits are just beginning.
Yeah, so really in closing, just like I said even earlier, you can't drug your way out of something that you lifestyled yourself into. And you may not be able to change your genetics, but you can absolutely change the environment on the inside, creating an environment where great things are way more likely to come or to happen. So you know what, just keep on listening, just keep on applying and doing the things that we're talking about. There's not anything that we would ever ask you to do that we do not do ourselves. I can tell you with a birthday coming up, I'm healthier right now than I've ever been in my entire life. And I really just can't wait to wake up every day because of that. When you have your health, there's nothing more freeing than being able to wake up healthy every day.
Dude, and it's really cool that you said that, because I've been blessed to be a part of that journey with you from the beginning. You've been my best friend for 23 years. And when you say that you are the healthiest you've ever been, I don't know that it's true for your entire life, but for the last 23 years that I've known you, no question about it. And I love seeing it, you coming up on a birthday that you share with my late father, Harold Johns, who set a lot of this in motion in me years ago with my desire to want to teach, educate, and help others, who died back in 2008. It's so cool that my best friend shares my late father's birthday. But man, seeing you healthy and how you thrive, it's a real story, dude. And of course, me 15 years ago, they're telling me I'm dead, and here I am today. So it's good to know that you can get older, but once you understand real metabolic health, and you know that you're not broken, that you're not a victim to your genetics, that's when real learning starts and the real magic begins to happen.
Absolutely. So thanks so much for listening to The Happy Healthy Life. Like it, share it, comment about it, 5-star review us. It really helps us to be able to get this message out to more people. The podcast is growing, which is amazing. We've got some great guests that are coming on as well. So thank you so much for listening. And we did have a question, Chris. Yes. And I messaged you back. It does matter the type of chiropractor that you go to. And there is a lot of different styles of chiropractic care. It matters. So reach out to us. We'll get you plugged into somebody who can really be able to help you in that department. So thanks again for your comments. Thank you for everything that you guys do. Thank you to our family. And I say our family, our happy, healthy family who is on with us right now listening live.
Thanks for listening to the Happy Healthy Life podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure to follow them on Instagram at the H2 Life, or on YouTube and Facebook at the Happy Healthy Guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.